Hi, everybody. This is Cameron Cloutier with Obnoxious and Anonymous and Alternative Nation, and I'm here talking to an actor you've known from such shows as It's Gary Shandling's Show, All My Children, Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, Charm, Twin Peaks on the air. It is my great privilege to be talking with Mr. Ian Buchanan. How's it going today, Ian?
Very well, Cameron. Thank you. It's nice to talk to you.
I know you are a very busy man, so when you heard that there was going to be this revival of Twin Peaks, were you thinking, oh crap, now I have to make some room in my schedule for another show?
I would like to. I'd like that to be a problem. If that came off, I think I definitely would. I'd be able to make room. I would be very happy to do that.
I know you've done a lot of different work, but Twin Peaks is something that comes up again and again. As something that's very special to a lot of fans, and towards your work on that show. Even though you were only on the show for the second season, your character achieves a level of a lot of goodwill.
Yes, I think I think they were. I mean, I wasn't totally aware of it at the time, but only recently, they had made a decision to bring in a lighter tone to the show, something a little comedic, and bring a little soap opera, like a little love triangle, and that's really how the whole Lucy, Andy, Dick thing came about. And I only found that out recently from Bob Engel, and I thought it was quite. I had no idea because we did all our stuff separately, and I didn't, was never aware of what was going on in the rest of the show until it actually aired. So, there we were, light and breezy, singing along, and little bluebirds on our shoulders, and having a little romance. So.
Well, what's really amazing about it is, I've seen so much of your work, and you're wonderful in all these dramatic roles, but you have to admit, Dick Tremaine it's a fine line. You play him just enough this way, and he's a cartoon character, and you had to keep this sort of realism, even though preposterous things are happening, like wine tasting and pine weasels running around. But but you're able to it's amazing how you're still able to ground those scenes without it feeling like a cartoon,
Well, thank you. That is it is a fine line, and I was kind of I think I was obviously taking a chance, but I felt like I was in very good hands. I hadn't really. Gary Shandling, of course, was a little loopy as well, which I loved, but I was, had become known for these kind of leading romantic, male lead roles, and this was the opportunity for me to kind of break that mold and go towards something that I actually enjoyed almost more and was more kind of related to, and I kind of trusted. I trusted, and I was not let down. I have to say, in years gone, I hadn't really seen much of it until quite recently, when there's been a lot of issues of box sets and Blu-rays, etc. I'd actually seen all of it, and I think it was all handled very well. And I was surrounded by also great people, like even David Lander for the whole pine weasel thing was just such a great support, and also, the lovely Kimmy Robertson and Harry Goes, and just great people. I felt sometimes I got to rein this in, but nobody ever told me to rein it in. So I think that was kind of.
Well, you have this, this amazing charm about you, even though your character is the moment you walk in, everybody knows your character's a jerk, and yet.
Yeah.
You become one of the most likable people in the entire second season by the end, Everyone likes.
Yeah, it was kind of funny to walk into sort of. I remember I'd walk into the sheriff's station and Lucy would go, "Dick." It's kind of just such a weird thing to be kind of the first thing you heard as you entered the room was "Dick." I was like, well,
did
that's the tone, I guess.
Did you have to practice that winning smile before?
No, I think that just I don't know, that just by the good graces of the muse just suddenly appeared, I think, in the first scene, and they were completely they were like, that's it, that's the way you got to go with this, just here's somebody who obviously spends a lot of money in a small town, and the way he looks, and probably got himself the biggest, widest smile that money could buy, and that's just what he presents himself with. So.
But he has no qualms whatsoever about betting Lucy on a bed inside Horn's department store. He doesn't even take her to a hotel.
No, I think it was very cheap. I think that was established too. You know, it was very, very cheap. Like I think they were going to, split the first date at the Space Needle in Seattle or something like that.
Right. What's amazing about Twin Peaks just in general is, showing the series to my wife just in the last year. She hadn't seen it growing up, and it's interesting how that show has not dated at all, because everything was pretty much the clothes were kept timeless. The music obviously weren't using pop tunes from that day, so you can watch it today, and with the exception of no one has a cell phone or everybody's smoking in restaurants or whatever, like nothing else dates the show. It's
no, absolutely. I think it did sort of. It is encapsulated in a period in sort of, even like it's not. I mean, although it was the early '90s, it could be the '50s. It could be any time really. It could be. I think, and that's I would say it's part of the premise, is like it's a sweeter time in America, where it's a sweeter time where still very bad things happen, but it's got that wonderful kind of like Leave It to Beaver, like sort of like kind of Cleaver thing of like everybody living in these like sweet little houses with all the front is all what's presented is very kind of Americana, and I like that. That is pretty timeless. I mean, I like that when I saw it too. Actually, I think it holds up. I mean, it holds up phenomenally well, and I think it's been kept alive by this incredible kind of great sort of fan base of very creative people who do these wonderful events and wonderful things, and universities do kind of retrospectives and screen the entire series, and people, young people who've never seen it just go crazy for it. So I think it's quite remarkable.
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting looking back at the show now is there's a scene where Lucy's talking to you and Andy in the conference room, and your cigarette light kind of ignites the smoke alarm, and that smoke alarm sets off the sprinklers, which of course releases Bob from Leland. So in many ways, your character is one of the initial steps as to why Agent Cooper is possessed by the end of the show.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I never asked any questions. Really, I just never did. And I've gone on a lot of Q&As and with Bob Engel and various other people who kind of created a lot of the stuff, and people asking questions about what was this about and how did that happen? Is this and I've been like, seriously? That's like like how everything all tied together. It's because I've there's any time I've ever done anything, you read a whole script. You read the script so you know exactly where you are and what it's about. I never read a script. I got pages. I got like 4 or 5 pages, and I never read the script. So I never knew how it related to, or how it interacted with what came before and what came after. I had never any idea. So,
how did the role come to you? Did you just hear that they were casting for this part, or did someone actively come seek you out?
I did. I had worked with David and with Lara Flynn Boyle. We'd done and James Marshall, and we'd done the Calvin Klein Obsession campaign, the last big campaign of commercials and print work. And David directed that, and I filmed that, and a week later, I was asked to come in and read for the role of Dick. So I did. I got it, and I think, I was like, well, sure. I think David did. I think David said at one point, you'd make a good Dick. So,
was there any talk, if as the second season was going on, that if there had been a third season, was there talk about keeping you on the show, or you shaking hands with Andy as being the better man, the better father at the end? Was that going to be your exit?
I honestly, I'm very vague about the timeline of that, because I'd already started to work on the air, Miguel and I had already started on the air, like just almost as they were doing the last of the filming the last of the show. We'd already started doing the pilot, so that kind of. So I guess I never really wasn't thinking about if there was going to be a third season or whether I'd be a part of it. I just thought was going to be doing on the air. So
now with on the air. One can easily say it's definitely more cartoony than Twin Peaks. And yet it does kind of have a similar vibe to some of the funnier parts of the second season of Twin Peaks. How did you approach Lester Guy differently than Dick Tremaine, or did you think that they were, similar people?
I think maybe they were similar, but I think Lester Guy was just kind of I think he was somebody who almost like completely lost his mind. Like, the backstory was that, he had been in B movies and was so washed up that he'd been found like, sipping vodka out of a frozen orange juice carton in some cheap motel someplace. And they decided to put him on television. That was the only backstory I was given, and I thought it was quite interesting. And I kind of there were obviously elements of Dick Tremaine. I kind of he was pretty. I've never played a character like him since, and I enjoyed playing him. I liked his egocentricity and his complete buffoonery and his almost like his very limited talent. Almost, like his complete belief in himself with his limited talent, and aligning himself with making all sorts of mistakes, and just I loved it. I think it was something that maybe was the closest to maybe something that I would dream about, like as a kid. It was like being a kid. I don't know. I just found it to be. He was such a kiss ass and just like completely desperate and but funny and in a very. I kind of wished he'd survived a little longer. I would have been very curious to see where he'd go. I don't know.
Well, he was definitely a character who didn't mind a dog being pulled into the dog dish to eat the food, I think he was pretty much up for anything, except he wanted to be the star of the show. I mean, he'd suffered at the hands of enough fools, as far as he was concerned. This was his opportunity, and he'd been picked out to be the star of the Lester Guy show. Nobody was going to get in his way. Nobody was going to, take him off center stage, and yet everybody did. He always ended up like the whole, the setup of the great show, and then the whole thing going wrong, and people liking it because it was a complete mess, and poor Lester always ending up in some horrible cartoon situation, of course, which would kill any real person, but not Lester. But well, it takes an actor with no ego whatsoever to be able to play some of those scenes, like when he's practicing his opening dance, and
oh yeah, for days. Oh my God! But the other great thing, I got to work with Angela Badalamenti, sitting there, going to rehearsal room, and Angela saying here are little lyrics for a funny song I want, and I was like, oh gosh, right, so singing the lyrics and him writing music and I loved that. That was just such a great way to spend my lunch break or whatever. And and he was writing the theme for the Olympics, I think for the Barcelona Olympics at the time, and writing on the air. And it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved it.
In the pilot episode, there's a scene where you kind of stand up and realize that that a dog's going to come flying out the window, or a person's going to come flying out the window. And there's a shot of you where you just literally just scream in horror. How does David Lynch get you to that level of performance where you realize that your life is in danger and you need to scream like that?
Well, I'm sort of pretty lucky that I all I have to do is believe the situation that I'm in, and I usually will, with everything else that I have to do. It's sometimes you just believe it, and I think he he obviously said, so, this guy, he just comes flying out the window, and you were just, I don't know. That's a very good question, because I don't know, there was definitely no coercion or no manipulation. It just was, well, this is what we're going to do. And David always, calls you by character name, and he said, this is what, I just feel so badly for Lester, because Lester said it's about to be as flat as a pancake any minute, flat as a pancake.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, right. So, you just go with it.
Well, that pilot episode is definitely one of the funniest things ever, when you realize that the whole first half of that episode is all set up to the payoff in the last 15 minutes, It's fantastic. A friend of mine, James, who was at the Twin Peaks UK festival, said that they screened the pilot, and he just remembers hearing you laugh watching it just recently.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I saw the pilot. I've only ever seen the pilot at either, I had to go to New York, and they were screening the pilot at the museum or something or other, like the arts or something. It was with an audience, and there was a Q&A. I never really got to enjoy it, and I had to go to something else, and there was an audience and a Q&A, and I didn't really get to watch it. And I got to see it in London for the first time, and it really kind of got the whole thing and the rhythm of it. And I was very amused. Then I came back here, and USC, was screened the series, and I went to see the pilot. That was the part I went to, and it was funny. And kids were like hysterically laughing. It was very funny.
When you are being directed by David Lynch, usually, how many takes usually are you guys working to get to that? Because when you worked with Lynch, at least with, let's say, Twin Peaks and On the Air, you are definitely working in more comedic scenes. Are these scenes that are done relatively quickly for you, or do you feel like as an actor, or the way Mr. Lynch works, that you have to, get into a groove a bit to achieve that kind of level of comedic hystericalness?
I think I would say, we were quite a tight ensemble on the air, so we never really. Nobody scuttled off to the trailer and sat alone until it was time to come back and be funny. We all kind of stuck around and were part of the process. So therefore, it didn't really seem, when it came down to actually filming after lights were set up and stuff. And of course, we had stand-in so that we could go do dress and do final stuff. But we kind of tended to stay in it quite a bit and stay
in the zone.
Yeah, stayed in the zone. So we were kind of didn't seem like. I mean, some things were longer than others, especially the special effects stuff and the stunt stuff, and hanging upside down. I think took longer than I thought it ever would.
How long were you hanging upside down?
I was hanging upside down for quite a long time. In fact, I was hanging upside down, I think, for 2 days, I believe,
and that's you. And that's you coming through the window?
That is me one time coming through the window, I think. I'm not sure if it was. They had somebody really fly through the window at one point, but I think I went through the window at one time too. But when they hauled me up on the rope, I don't think anybody had thought that the Hessian rope would start to unravel. So I was 20 feet off the ground, and I started to spin very fast in one direction, and just saw everybody and then I stopped. And I could hear voices of them saying, "Oh my God, no, it's going to go in the other direction." No, of course it did. So I started to spin. By the time they got me down on the ground, I was completely I was such a total mess. I was very nauseous, and I just was completely "Oh my God, you got to get me out of here!" And David came over, and I was upside down. And of course, my eyes are on the floor, looking at his feet, and he leant down and he said, which I didn't hear him say, but he said, "Copacetic, Lester." And I thought he said, "You're so pathetic." I was like, "What? How could you say that? How could you say that after all this, what I've done? How could you?" And he was like, whoa, what's the matter? What's the matter? You call me pathetic? I'm not pathetic. How can you say it? He was like, "Copacetic, Lester. Copacetic, Lester." Funny.
were you ever asked to be in Fire Walk with Me?
No.
I was just
No,
I was just worried Laura Palmer would have had an affair with your character as well.
Yeah, no, yeah, that would have been funny.
Now, the reason why I ask about the takes is because I know that sometime later you did a few scenes in David Fincher's Panic Room, and he's notorious for doing multiple takes of scenes.
Yeah.
How now you were in the opening moments of that movie. How long was the shooting schedule for your scenes?
I was involved in that movie for over a year because
Wow.
yeah, it started out with Nicole Kidman.
Did you shoot with her?
We had done some exterior stuff, and then it changed to Jodie, and I did the New York exterior stuff with Jodie and did the interior, and then we had to reshoot some of the exterior New York stuff. I'm not sure if it was because it was. Oh, I think it was something either to do with the whole opening sequence of the Twin Towers in the back or something. Then of course they were gone, so they had to reshoot that. So we went back to do that. So yeah, I think I worked a total of maybe, I think 6 or 7 days over a period of 15 months.
Wow. And you actually worked with Kristen Stewart before she became Kristen Stewart.
I did, and she was adorable. I just loved her. She was the sweetest, greatest kid. And actually, her uncle is somebody I know because he's stage manager on several shows that I've done. So he'd said to me, like, I think, we're going to be working with my niece. Like, it was kind of cool. I had a little connection to her, and her parents were great. And we had a great time. Jodie and she were just terrific together. I mean, there was another kid had been cast when it was Nicole, who was very similar to Nicole, actually, like looked just like her, but this Kristen looked a lot like Jodie. So,
can you describe what it's like to be directed by David Fincher?
It's I've done several things with David. I like it. I like it a lot. It's great fun. It's nice because he's in charge, and I love that. I love when one person is in charge. It's so great. It just takes everything. There's sometimes I go to work and I don't know who the hell's in charge. I'm thinking like it can be. It's not. I hope it's not me because I'm not. It should not be me. Somebody else would be like to be making the decisions, and ultimately, of course, I do what I think is make the right choices. And if they're not right, I want somebody to say like change that. But you can't be told that by a lot of people, and sometimes that happens. But with Fincher, that's the great thing about Lynch, Fincher, and any great director on a great movie set is when it's, when they say action, the rest of the world stands still, and I just love that. So.
Have you ever been on a project where you have script approval for your character?
Not officially. I've definitely been on projects where I want somebody to change it, and then you just change it, and they say, well, yeah, we quite like that, or it depends. I mean, the actors are very good at editing. They're very good. Like some actors would like ask for like more words. I need more. I'm not one of those actors. I actually will. I want it stripped down to the bare bones. I'd rather not. But
well, because you can actually express with your face. Some actors can't.
Well, maybe that. Yeah. Maybe that. Yes.
Now, you do a lot of live action work, but I know you've also done like voicing for animation. Can you talk about what that's like? It seems like you enjoy it since you've done a few of them.
I do like it. I like it a lot. It takes me a little while to kind of, I'm actually I'm better at it now than I maybe was. I used to not be quite free, and then I kind of found a way to sort of loosen up with it, where you really are just, sometimes it's only you and everybody else has done their session, and but then I did one where the entire cast were in the room sitting, in the studio in a circle, and that's when I got a feel of it. When I got the feel of really, it became great fun. I wasn't quite so terrified as, it's terrifying standing in a little booth on your own with a headset on and just looking at pages of words and, trying to make it, give it, a time and a place and a whole atmosphere and a whole, it's kind of, it's sort of daunting, but, I know people who are brilliant at it. I'm not. I'm good at it, but I know people who are just totally brilliant, and they do it sometimes. And I have several friends who do books on tape, and they do them from little recording studios they set up in a spare closet in their home, and without editors or anything. And they're brilliant. They're just absolutely brilliant. And my hat's off to all of them. I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to do. Now, I like being asked to go do stuff, and I'm very happy to do it. But I still feel like it's something that I'd love to be better at, and maybe one day I'll just be great at it. Who knows?
Well, you've done quite a bit in the Batman universe and Justice League and with DC.
Yeah.
It's like, is this something that they've come to you about, or is this like you're like, I want to be involved with Justice League and Batman, get me involved in that?
No, they came to me. They came to me and asked me to do that. There's a wonderful casting director, and she also is the voice director, and she calls me in whenever she's doing something and asks if I want to do it, and I'm interested in. I love it. I love doing it.
You've played a number of doctors on different soap operas, but it's kind of interesting that you didn't play a doctor in General Hospital. So.
No, I didn't. I haven't seen. Somebody actually asked me that yesterday. Like, I played a gynecologist, which was very creepy, and I played a psychiatrist, which was actually he was a good character and not creepy in the slightest. I haven't played like a regular doctor. I played Erica Kane's gynecologist, which was what it was.
Well, as someone who has worked in soap operas for many years, the fact that a lot of them seem to be going away, to me is kind of a shame because, if you actually look into, what soap operas have done over the last 40 years, in terms of like it's broken in so many actors, it's given writers chances to perfect their craft, and it's just a real shame that level of training ground seems to be, slowly going away. What is your perspective on that?
I think, when I started doing soap operas, I think they were like 15 or 16, although now there are 4 on network. It's something that I never quite, several years ago when people started to say, well, it's over, and including Oprah Winfrey actually said that she now has a whole network filled with soap operas. But she said the soap opera's over, it's time to move on. And other people said that, and I don't believe that. I actually don't believe it, because I think scripted drama, as opposed to either reality or cooking shows, there's always a market for it. As you can see now in all prime time, it's all soap operas. Again, it's all scripted drama, but especially the ABC lineup, which is pretty fabulous, and horror stories like a soap opera, it's scripted drama. It's great to see. I love all of these shows and love to see them on television, but I think there is a place for whether we still call it daytime, but people now choose when they want to watch it. They either DVR it and watch it in the evening, or they do a whole marathon on the weekend, or it used to be people at work had a little television set in the top drawer and they watched their soaps, or people, like, you could listen to them on the radio even until a couple of years ago. They were broadcast simultaneously, and I think there's just this market. It's not with the audience is built back up again, having disappeared when around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, when basically I think the audience felt as if they'd been abandoned, so they realized they could live without, being loyal to their shows or their stories on a daily basis. But now the audience have come back, and it's a new audience for the most part, but also it's a lot of the original audience. So it's quite. I think I'm very happy that the 3 networks are committed to keeping the shows that they have on the air, and really they promote them and they sort of interweave them with their whole lineup, and I think it's brilliant. I like it.
As an actor, do you try to follow continuity in your mind as what's going on, or do you just today's work is today's work, tomorrow's work is tomorrow's work?
Oh, no, we do. The actors do, actually. Like on a soap, we do, because sometimes, so many different writers, and if you've actually... Yeah, that stuff comes up every day for us. Like, not I mean, I never say, oh, my character wouldn't say this shit. Like, what is this? Like, I mean, I never approach anything like that. But if something is not correct, if it's not like, hang on, why am I saying this? This is not what happened. Am I lying, or is this just not right? And some things will be adjusted, and some things will be fixed, and that happens all the time, because the continuity, I think, is part of the responsibility of playing the role. Because you're the one with the memory of, the person who wrote Duke Lavery 26 years ago is probably not alive anymore. It's not writing the role. So whoever's writing it now, depends upon, and is open to kind of any sort of, input But even like stuff from a month ago, I'll get a script and I'll be like, hang on, that's like, what is that? Unless this is just a story device just to move something in a different direction, then it's not accurate, it's not true, so it gets addressed.
Now, when you were on the Gary Shandling show, you also did a quick stint on Larry Sanders as well. So you were on both of, Gary Shandling's big time shows. What was he like to work with?
Great. I love him. I still do. I'd work with him in a heartbeat. He was great. We had a lot of fun together. It was great, and he was next door to General Hospital, the two sound stages. So I went from one to the other every day, which I loved.
Makes commuting easy.
I totally. And there was one episode of Gary Shandling where with the new producer of General Hospital, he said what couldn't work. He couldn't get me out to go there and do the show, and so they wrote Gary Shandling. They wrote the show that Gary's mother was a fan of General Hospital and went to visit the set. So they actually rented the General Hospital studio and came over and shot Gary's show on our set, which was great. So a lot of my co-workers on one show got to be there. It was funny. We were on the Gary Shandling show together. So.
If you came back as Dick Tremaine on season 3 or this new season, whatever they end up calling this Showtime version of Twin Peaks, where is Dick Tremaine today, 25 years later? Is he still at Horn's department store?
I don't know. I have this I don't know. I think he'd be like singing in a lounge someplace. I think he'd such aspirations of kind of being, songs always been this bon vivant, and this. He either has gone off to other places, like, bigger and greater, or else if he's still in that town, I think he's either got I don't know. I think he might be like a cheesy lounge singer in some bar, or I don't know. He could be anything. Quite honestly, he really could be anything. He could be running the entire Horn's department store. He could. I don't know.
He could be running One-Eyed Jacks.
And One-Eyed, yeah, he could be running One-Eyed Jacks, and I don't know. Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
My wife is a big foodie, and so when she saw your scene with the wine tasting, I think that I literally had to stop the show because she was laughing uncontrollably for 15 minutes. And your chemistry with Harry Goes is just fantastic, and
yeah, we were great. We still are friends, but we were great. We had great fun. Those were great days. Those were great, very happy times.
Well, if any of the casting agents or David Lynch and Mark Frost hear this podcast, Ian Buchanan, as far as I'm aware, right, would like to be in this new season?
I would have that. I would be thrilled and honored and delighted but we all know how these things work. So.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with me.
Cameron, it was my pleasure, and I'll be very happy to talk to you anytime.